So yeah, I know, I'm a little late to the party, but really, I didn't even know this movie came out. So since everybody else on the internet has already put their thoughts out there on the movie, my turn. RESC! Nope, not doing it. Respect is brought to us by director Laszlo Tommy and stars Jennifer Hudson, Forest Whitaker, and Marlon Wayne. We follow the rise of Aretha Franklin's career from a child singing in her father's church choir to her international superstardom. And this movie was actually a lot better than I thought it was going to be, seeing as how it just kind of came and went. I mean, it's a biopic about a famous musician's life, so you kind of know what you're going to get here, but it does give us some insight into Franklin's life that we didn't know before. It ain't no What's Love Got to Do With It, have some of this cake, baby, but it was still entertaining. I really like how the movie delved into the creative process of Franklin's work as well as her personal life. We don't get to see the creative side in these movies very often, or at least in any kind of detail. But here we do get to see it a bit. Now it is only really scratching the surface, but I thought it was pretty neat to see her in that environment, to see her fleshing out some of these hits that we all know and love. Now we do of course get to see many parts of her personal life that developed her into the person that she was, and that was all pretty cool. Some of it was actually pretty fucked up, like really fucked up. There was some things about Aretha Franklin's childhood that I was not aware of. Now, while I liked this aspect of the film, this is also where one of the issues with the movie came up for me. It doesn't go deep enough into these things. It kind of glazes over some stuff that you're like, you know, I feel like I would like to know more about that situation. I feel like that's kind of a big thing, and I think that you guys should elaborate on that a bit. But instead, they decide to just keep going and glaze over it all. And this was a mistake, I think. These are the things that we want to know from a biopic. We don't necessarily want to hear all the stuff we already know. The first half of the movie is the best part of the movie. The second half is fine, I guess, but it becomes pretty formulaic. It becomes what you expect from a biopic. As the movie goes on, it starts to skim over more and more things and becomes less and less interesting due to that. It's like the writers became too concerned with cramming everything in from her life instead of exploring more of these things in detail. I didn't need every single event in Aretha Franklin's life to be in this movie. They should have just picked a period of time and focused on that. And since they didn't do that, it's almost like we don't ever really get to know the character of Aretha Franklin. We still only know of the enigma that was Aretha Franklin. There are some really neat things in this movie, some really interesting things that are touched on, but we don't want them to just be touched on. We want to know more. Also, it gets a bit preachy, especially in the last third of the film. And while I have seen movies do this to much worse degrees, it doesn't change the fact that it was here. And what made it stand out all the more was the first half of the movie didn't have any of that. In fact, there was stuff that was very much against that. There are moments in the movie early on that lesser films would have demonized certain characters for things, and this movie doesn't do that. It takes a different approach. And I was really happy to see that. I wasn't expecting it. Honestly, when these situations arose, I expected it to go a totally different way. But it surprised me and showed me a slice of true life. And that's what this movie does for a good portion of the first half of the movie. Unfortunately, the second half turns into something altogether different. I feel like the filmmakers wanted to go into more detail, but it's like they saw that they were running out of time. And that takes me back to my point of you should have just focused on a period of her life, not her entire life. Because trying to focus on her entire life within this condensed amount of time, you lose a lot of the interesting aspects of it, thus losing what her entire life was about. This isn't a short movie either, and due to the movie becoming more formulaic in the second half, it does start to become more apparent. You notice the length. I checked my watch in the last third of the film more than once. Now, it was closer to the end and things were starting to wrap up, so it's not like the entire movie I was just sitting there checking my watch every few minutes wondering when things were gonna pick up. But it did still happen. The last third of this movie absolutely could have benefited from some more tightening and editing. Now, we got some really good performances here from pretty much everybody on board. The movie does show that these characters are all flawed, and all of them have their moments of showing that they're not always the greatest people. And while I was happy to see this, much like the story showing more detail, I wish it had shown a bit more here as well. Jennifer Hudson as Aretha Franklin is great. I honestly couldn't imagine anybody else in the role. She did a fantastic job here. Forest Whitaker as Franklin's father was also great, but it's Forest Whitaker. We kind of expect him to be great in pretty much everything he's in. The one that surprised me the most though was Marlon Wayans as Ted White, Aretha Franklin's husband. Holy shit, he was excellent here. I didn't even recognize Marlon Wayans here. This was a total transformation, and it's not like he has a whole bunch of makeup on or anything. His mannerisms, his voice, just the performance he gives absolutely transformed him, and he does a fantastic job here. Now you're gonna fucking hate this guy by the end of the movie because he was a pretty deplorable human being, but Marlon Wayans fucking sold it, man. He was fantastic and absolutely deserves some type of award nomination for this role. And that is one area that this movie absolutely excels at, is the performances. Everybody here does a fantastic job. There's no bad performances. Guys, while it does peter off in the last third, I did enjoy learning more about the Queen of Soul's life, though I would have liked it to go a little bit deeper than it did. The first half of this film was fantastic, and there are some wonderful performances throughout. And while it does become a bit formulaic, it is still a pretty entertaining biopic and totally worth a rent.
All he wanted was this.
I have to return some videotape.
I wanted a bit more from this movie, but I did still enjoy it. It is crowd-pleasing overall. So if you're looking for a pretty entertaining biopic for the night, you've got quite a bit of time to spare, then check out Respect one night, and I think you're gonna have a good time with it. So there it is, guys, my review of Respect. If you enjoyed and want more content like this, hit that subscribe button and help my little channel grow. If you want to help out the channel, check out my Patreon in the description below and become a jarhead and get some of the awesome benefits that go along with that, like these guys, and possibly join my top tier and become a bad motherfucker like my man Greg C and Dragon Khan. If you liked what I had to say, give me a like. If not, let me know in the comments below why. And as always, stay sexy, Memphis.
You have to disturb the peace when you can't get no peace.
So who's next for the musical biopic treatment? Me, myself, personally, I'm gonna go with one. I don't know how interesting their lives were, honestly. I don't know much about their personal lives, but their music is awesome. I don't give a shit what anybody says. And I'm gonna throw a name into the hat. That would be ABBA. Just call it Dancing Queen and bam, there's your movie. Yes, I love ABBA and I'm a straight man. Come at me.